If it feels like it's been a while since my last video, you'd be correct. That's because I've been fully immersed in Red Dead Redemption 2, the latest epic from Rockstar Games. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a different kind of game, and one that you can't blow through. So I've spent the last month experiencing as much of the game as possible. I finished the main story, yet there's still so much for me to see and do. Nonetheless, here are 5 things you should know about Red Dead Redemption 2. Number 1. This is Rockstar's most detailed and realistic world. Rockstar are known for their incredible attention to detail, and with Red Dead Redemption 2, they've truly created their most vibrant and colorful world. New Haven and its surrounding areas are gorgeous and feel alive like no other open world setting has ever felt. You can interact with any character any way you choose, and they respond in ways that feel both believable and enjoyable. Once again, you can interact with any character you come across. To my knowledge, this kind of interactivity hasn't even been attempted on this scale. Some of these interactions may be insignificant, but others can lead to some enjoyable diversions. Red Dead Redemption 2 is also Rockstar's most realistic game to date, and their meticulous attention to detail shows in the many complex systems running the game. Guns require maintenance or else they become harder to shoot. Arthur and his horse require feeding, bathing, and resting in order to maintain their vital stats. Characters remember you, meaning if you cause trouble, it can affect how others interact with you after the fact. The end result is a game that strips away the elements of the power fantasy that makes up so many of Rockstar's games and makes you feel like an insignificant part of a larger and deadlier world. Number 2. That realism can hinder your enjoyment of the game. That realism comes at a cost, however. No matter how you spin it, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a difficult game to play and therefore enjoy on a moment-to-moment basis. Traveling from one point on the map to another takes ages, and the complexity of the social interactions can lead you to say or do something you may not mean to. Maintaining Arthur's stats and remaining well-fed can be a bit of a pain, though it isn't as intrusive as some other games with survival elements. The really frustrating part about Red Dead Redemption 2's gameplay is in how it controls. To say the controls feel dated is a massive understatement. Nothing, from running to shooting to looting and to riding on horseback, feels particularly great, and only feel like marginal improvements on the original Red Dead Redemption's controls. I would also like to remind you that Red Dead Redemption released over 8 years ago. The janky controls also lead to some ridiculous immersion-breaking moments. You'll run into trees on your horse, you'll slam doors open because you're running instead of walking. You'll bump into other people and anger them, setting off a violent chain of events you never wanted. Red Dead Redemption 2's realism is admirable, but it would have been a lot more enjoyable with modernized controls. Number 3. Chance encounters are wildly entertaining and justify exploring every inch of the massive world. As is common with Rockstar games, the world of Red Dead Redemption 2 is littered with interesting characters to meet and jobs to complete. Many of these people are met completely at random during your travels. Some of the most enjoyable moments I had in the game were during these chance encounters. I helped moonshiners find the perfect recipe. I helped a pair of escaped convicts. I helped retrieve a slaver's personal effects from his dilapidated home, only to kill him upon discovering who he really was. A brother and sister took me in and offered me food and drink, only to drug me and steal all of my money. Running into people I figured were just generic NPCs, and later realizing that they had full-fledged stories behind them, helped bring this world to life in such a uniquely Rockstar way. It also encourages you to keep exploring and check out every camp you find along the way. Number 4. Arthur Morgan and the rest of the Vanderlyn gang are a likable and well-written bunch. Red Dead Redemption 2 tells the story of the Dutch Vanderlyn gang and their eventual downfall, and since it's a prequel to the first game, you should know how this story eventually ends. But despite that, the story succeeds in large part due to the well-written cast of characters. Arthur, Dutch, and the rest of the boys are all bad men, that much is certain, but their loyalty to each other and their gang family makes them all likable despite being rough around the edges. All of the secondary characters range from entertaining to compelling and interesting. Sadie Adler is easily one of the best characters Rockstar have ever written, and watching her change throughout the story makes for some incredible moments. Characters like her, with depth, motivation, and imperfections, make them worth engaging with and makes their contribution to the story impactful. Number 5. The story is emotional and powerful, but marred by bad pacing. Red Dead Redemption 2 is big, grand, and bold with its storytelling. It handles complex issues like racism, women's rights, and the industrialization of the United States with a surprising amount of tact and finesse. I was invested in the story from the beginning, and the ending left me satisfied. Now that I've mentioned all that, however, I can also say with confidence that Red Dead Redemption 2 has a huge pacing issue. The story takes place over 6 chapters as the gang moves camp from place to place. These chapters all have distinct arcs that start out slow, build up, and end in a climactic battle. What's frustrating about this is that after the climax and intensity of a previous chapter, it feels like you're starting over without much consequence in the next chapter. There aren't many characters outside of the gang that carry over from chapter to chapter, and the few antagonists that do are dealt with pretty unceremoniously. I feel like there's about 25 hours of compelling story and missions in Red Dead Redemption 2. The problem is that there's about 60 hours of it. Like its characters, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a complex and imperfect game. It's ambitious in its scope, but falters in its execution to some extent. That doesn't mean there aren't plenty of worthwhile things to do and people to interact with. What about Red Dead Redemption 2 stands out to you? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/redtoothgames, follow us on Twitter at redtoothgames, and subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also find us on the web at redtoothgames.com. Thanks for watching, and thanks for your continued support.